I think this last thing with these liberals is the atheist thing. I think the belief thing. They fundamentally still believe that conservatives are backwards, religious believers. And I think that this is a huge problem. So while, of course, you can be a non-believer and be moral and decent, my good friend Michael Shermer, my good friend Pete Boghossian, of course there are atheists like that. It cannot work as an organizing principle. Societies cannot work around without something that is bigger than themselves. And I think this is now becoming a huge problem. We now live in what I would say is sort of a godless society that has only ushered in more religion, and that ushers in more bureaucrats and crazy people who just want to control people. So now I want to link this to a video from Jordan Peterson. So Jordan Peterson's been talking about this for a long time. Here's Jordan Peterson in 2018. This is 4 years ago, talking about the necessity of religion in order to fight tyranny. And you tell me, does it sound, now it's 2022, so 4 years later, do you think Jordan's right or wrong about this? You tell me.
I do believe that the biblical texts are foundational. I believe it in the Nietzschean sense. And Nietzsche, of course, announced famously in the late 1800s that God was dead. And the typical rationalist atheist regards that as a triumphalist proclamation. But that wasn't that for Nietzsche. And Nietzsche knew perfectly well and said immediately afterward that the consequences of that was going to be bloody catastrophe because everything was going to fall. And he predicted the rise of communism, for example, and the deaths of tens of millions of people in the aftermath of the death of God. Because Nietzsche knew perfectly well that when you pull the cornerstone out from underneath a building, that even though it may stay aloft in midair like a cartoon character that's wandered off a cliff for some period of time, that it will inevitably crumble and that it will be replaced by something that's perhaps far worse. Now, Nietzsche hoped it would be replaced by man's ability to recreate meaning spontaneously out of his psyche, for example, which I think is a doomed enterprise. But he knew that in the interval, it would be replaced by both nihilism and by communist totalitarianism, which is a hell of a prediction because it was done like 40 years before the events actually unfolded.
There have been terrible bad things done in the name of God, and there have been terrible bad things done in the name of communism and atheism. I don't think we can, I don't want to weigh them up.
I'll weigh them up.
You'll weigh them up and you'll say...
No problem. But we're living on the corpse of our ancestors like we always have. That's a very old idea. I think that the reason that the Western societies essentially work quite well is because they act out a Judeo-Christian ethic, and one that's essentially predicated on utmost regard for the sovereignty of the individual. So the individual is sovereign in relationship to the state, which is a remarkable idea and one that's fundamentally religious in its essence.
He's so good. He's just so good. Look, he's a friend of mine, obviously, and I toured with the guy, and I love him, and he influenced me in incredible ways. But like, you could hear that stuff over and over again. I mean, trust me, I've now watched that clip like 10 times, and it still has meaning each time, and in some ways, it has more meaning each time, right? So he says a couple things there that I think you see what I'm trying to do here. That if you remove God from the equation, some level of belief, some foundational belief, what he talks about as the Judeo-Christian ethos in essence, that it will be replaced by something horrible. And that is exactly what Nietzsche was warning, right? So the atheists sort of think, oh, it'll be replaced by the human psyche, that we'll all sort of believe that, or maybe not believe isn't the word, that we'll all sort of come to this realization about what humanity is, and we'll be very, very evolved, and everything will be pleasant and good and equal and all of that stuff. But you're seeing the fruits of what that has brought to us. You're seeing the fruits of it right now. We don't know if boys are boys or girls are girls. We think that being not racist is now being racist. We think that 2 + 2 = 5 and all of those things. So the reason I'm connecting all of these things is I think that this part of the last liberal, and I mean this with love and concern and with the desire to fix this genuinely, the fear of the last liberal that they'll be thought of as some sort of believing religious moron. It's like, Bill, those are the people that are now defending your ability to be a free-thinking atheist. No one is trying to convince Bill Maher to accept Christ or be a believer. I'm sure there's some people that would like that. But who are all of the people defending all of the societal principles that you're laying out? It's now conservatives.